Holy crap, you guys. What a day. What a night. I mean, I've never experienced anything like this. It's about 10 minutes after 11 p.m. West Coast time on Friday night or Saturday night, January 18th. And it's like we've been getting so incredibly, we collectively have been getting so incredibly jerked around by the Biden administration, by the incoming Trump administration, by TikTok itself, relative to the TikTok ban, and Congress and the Supreme Court. And so there were all kinds of rumors swirling around on TikTok today, on social media, about when TikTok was going to turn out the lights on the app. And over the last 2-3 days, there have been people, mutuals, friends of mine, posting all kinds of like sorrowful goodbye videos and talking about, what the app has meant to them, what the app has done for them, the community that they have formed on TikTok over the last 2, 3, 4 years, what that community means to them, what the loss of that community was going to mean to them and the impact that it was going to have on them, let alone the millions of small businesses who have used TikTok to keep their businesses alive, to grow their businesses, the millions of individuals who have monetized their TikTok accounts, who have used TikTok Shop or both to provide incomes for their families and single moms. I mean, won't anybody think of Mr. Global and his tiny chainsaws and Tom Powell Jr. and his air filters? If I don't laugh, I'm just going to fucking burst into tears, man. And so it's like TikTok was supposed to go away at 8:30 Eastern time earlier tonight. That didn't happen, which is 5:30 p.m. West Coast time, where my brother and I are in California. And we've been telling people for a couple of days, we're going to go live on TikTok at 7 p.m. on Saturday night and until at least 9 p.m. And then we'll see if TikTok is still here at 9 p.m. We didn't even make it that far. We went live at 10 minutes until 7 earlier tonight, Saturday night. And I don't know, we got up to like 2,000 followers, people who were watching our live. I mean, it was just he and I. And then we started adding people. We added Wiseacre, over opinionated Brit. We just added, I think it was my brother and I, and at the high point we had 6 other guests. We still had 1 empty box. And we'd been going for 30 or 40 minutes. We were having a great discussion. We were trying to keep up with the comments. They were flying by. And Suze was in our comments, and Chris with a K was in our comments. And we had some toddlers on the live. We were having a great time. We were having a really good discussion. And then around about 40 minutes in, 7:35 or so, I had a thing pop up on my screen that said TikTok is no longer available, and praising Donald Trump for helping TikTok to work out these current circumstances to restore TikTok. That popped up on my screen, and I couldn't get it off of my screen. It said you can click here to learn more, which I was like, that's going to take me to another website, which would take me out of the TikTok live. Or you can just click on close the app. I wasn't going to do that. And so I couldn't see anybody else on the screen anymore because this thing had popped up on my screen and was blocking my vision from everybody else who was on the live. And I couldn't see the comments anymore either. And it just stayed there. But the live was still going on. And so it did that for another 10 minutes or so. And then I got kicked out of the live. I could see that other people's boxes were disappearing, meaning they were getting kicked off of the live. And my phone, I mean, we were doing it. I was on my phone in TikTok, and text messages are just coming through like crazy. I didn't want to click on any of those text messages to see what they said because that would have taken me out of the live. And I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, this is it. And it was, we were supposed to have until 9 p.m. West Coast time, which was midnight East Coast time. That's when they were going to turn off TikTok. And it was 7:40 p.m. And I got kicked out of the live. It was my live. I got kicked out. I got bounced. And I couldn't reopen the app. Every time I reopened the app, that same first screen popped up. TikTok is no longer available. Click learn more or click on close the app. And the members of Congress who voted for the TikTok ban have absolutely no understanding of TikTok. Joe Biden, who signed that bill into law, has absolutely no fucking idea what TikTok is or what it does or what it provides to the people who use that app on a near daily basis, which is 50% of the population of the United States. No fucking idea. And then it goes to the Supreme Court. There are no members of the Supreme Court on TikTok. There was a case last week that the Supreme Court heard oral arguments on involving age verification for pornographic websites. And Justice Sam Alito, who has been on the court for at least 30 years, asked one of the attorneys, is Pornhub like the old-timey Playboy magazines, and does it have articles from the respected writers of the day, like Gore Vidal from back in the early 70s? The members of the Supreme Court have no fucking idea what TikTok is. But you know who in all of those three branches of government has an understanding of what TikTok is and what TikTok does? Elected Democrats in the House and the Senate, who many are on TikTok. They make TikToks. They have TikTok pages. Kamala Harris ran almost her entire fucking presidential campaign on TikTok. Donald Trump ran his campaign on TikTok. The mental health crisis that this is going to cause, the sudden, dramatic yanking away of this app from half of the population of the United States is going to be remarkable. You just took away community, human connection, human interaction a sense of belonging, a sense of I am not alone in this world from half of the population of the United States of America. You know, it's like I've been a trial attorney for 26 years. It'll be 26 years a couple months from now. And, you know, it's like when we get law clerks and law students working in our offices, I very frequently tell them that it's like, look, there is what the law says, there's what the code says, there's what statutes say, and then there's the practical realities of actual going out and living in the world. And they can be two very different things. And it's like you can be arguing the law and the facts and the civil code or whatever to a judge, and that judge can say, but yeah, isn't that going, if I grant what you're asking, isn't that going to have this practical impact in the real world? And isn't that really negative? That happens all the time. And that's what we're dealing with now. You know, there's the language of this law, this bill that was passed overwhelmingly bipartisanly by the House, overwhelmingly bipartisan by the Senate, then signed into law by Joe Biden. Then it was challenged in court by TikTok and ByteDance at the trial level, at the appellate level, and then at the Supreme Court level. And the Supreme Court upheld this legislation unanimously on constitutional grounds. National security interests, in this case, override First Amendment rights. And foreign-owned companies don't have First Amendment rights. But the practical impact, the practical real-world impact of out of the blue, taking this social media app away from 1/2 of the population of the United States of America is going to cause a massive mental health crash all across this country. You're going to have tens of millions of people who right now are in a massive dopamine withdrawal cycle that is unhealthy and negative to their existence. What you believe or don't believe about the language of the law itself doesn't matter to the people who are right now being real world, in practical terms, incredibly negatively impacted by this social media app disappearing. They've lost their human connection to other people. They have lost their community. And community, and forming community, and participating and being a part of community is a basic human drive necessary for healthy survival, regardless of what the language of the law says. There's the law and there's the practical reality of what you're doing. I love the website, The Bulwark. Fucking love it. Love all of the people there. They are uniformly poo-pooing and very derisively negatively commenting on people who are grieving the loss of this app because they don't use this app. They don't understand what this app has done for tens of millions of Americans in a community sense, in a connectivity sense, in an income sense, in a small business sense. They're like, national security, that's it. That's all that matters. And that's what the Supreme Court did. And I don't necessarily think the Supreme Court did anything wrong in this case. The Supreme Court decides cases based on reviewing the record that is before them and then hearing oral argument based on that record that is before them. And ByteDance's and TikTok's arguments did not carry the day. That happens. But to act like everybody who is experiencing a traumatic withdrawal or a traumatic loss of community or a loss of connections to other people, to just flippantly act like all of these people over here are just being ridiculous little bitches, is like holding up a gigantic sign that says, I am not a serious person. And I have absolutely no concern for the negative impact on half of the country by taking away this social media app. If it was so goddamn dangerous, why do all of these Democratic politicians run their entire goddamn campaigns on this app? If it was so goddamn dangerous, how did our government let this app get to a point where more than half of the population uses this app on a near daily basis? The legislation that did away with TikTok was paid for. It was bought and paid for by Mark Zuckerberg and AIPAC. Do you think Mark Zuckerberg or AIPAC gives two shits about our collective mental health? I don't. Today and this evening were insane. Absolutely fucking insane. But I give kudos to TikTok for turning this app off before 11 p.m. East Coast time on a Saturday night leading into Donald Trump's inauguration at noon on Monday. What's the news coverage going to be about tomorrow? It's going to be about TikTok. All morning, all afternoon, all evening, all night. They're going to be interviewing people who have lost their incomes. They're going to be interviewing people who are going through mental health crises because they've lost all of their connections to other human beings. And Donald Trump is going to swoop in at noon on Monday and be the savior. He's going to be the hero, and he's going to save TikTok, even though he signed an executive order in 2020 banning TikTok. Now he loves it. He credits TikTok with his election victory this past November. He loves TikTok now. I'm sure that has nothing to do with hedge fund investor Jeff Yass, who owns roughly $50 billion worth of TikTok shares that are traded on the private market and who donated over $150 million to Republicans in this last election cycle, including tens of millions of dollars that he donated to Donald Trump. This whole thing is a bad fucking joke. If you, with a straight face, say this is entirely about national security and the threat that China poses to the United States and the data of American citizens, but you're completely willing to ignore that one volume of the Mueller report, which mentions Facebook over 90 times and mentions Twitter over 70 times because Russia used Facebook and Twitter in the 2016 election to absolutely flood the United States of America with Russian propaganda, which actually got Americans to go show up for bogus protests in person. Because of Russia, you're not a serious person. If you're going to focus solely on China is a national security threat because of TikTok, but you're going to ignore the millions and millions of people who are now, they just had their income taken away from them tonight with TikTok shutting down. The millions of small businesses, they're going to fucking crater because TikTok was shut down tonight. The 170 million Americans who have contact with other human beings, who have made friends with people on TikTok, who have formed community with all kinds of other people on TikTok, who feel a healthy connection to the world through those communities that they formed on TikTok. If you're going to completely discount that and ridicule and denigrate those people because this app is important to them for those reasons, you're just a fucking dick. There's nothing else to say. You're just a fucking dick. And to have TikTok taken away from half of the population of this country on the eve of Donald Trump's election for his second term, and on the eve of another potential pandemic with bird flu that we're going to be guided through by Donald Trump, RFK Jr., and Dr. Oz. Fuck you. After our TikTok live got terminated, my brother and I immediately went over to YouTube, where we have a YouTube page, and we went live on YouTube. We had up to 2,000 people on our TikTok live. At one point, we had 4,200 people on our YouTube live, and we were on our YouTube live for almost 2.5 hours because people are scared. People are scared. People just suffered a traumatic loss of income, of friends, of community, of connection with other people. And my brother and I spent 2.5 hours with this. I spent 2 hours with those people. My brother spent 2.5. People are scared and they're worried. And for pundits or whoever to basically view those people as just being weak, immature, childish, and meaningless, that's pretty disgusting, to be honest with you. And really, really disappointing. It's incredibly disappointing to see people who you respect react like that. People who don't even use the fucking app. It's incredibly disappointing. And it causes reassessment. And so I don't know what's going to happen over the next 24, 36, 72 hours, the next week. I don't know if TikTok's coming back. I don't know what it will look like if it does come back. But for the intelligentsia to just take a giant shit on half of this country because they lost something that was legitimately extremely important to them, in part for their mental health, is just fucking gross. Anyway, tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow is Sunday. My brother and I are talking about going live on our YouTube page again tomorrow. I'm incredibly grateful for the over 4,000 people who joined us on our YouTube live earlier tonight for 2.5 hours. I hope that, and we saw people interacting with each other in the comments and supporting each other. And we were trying to do the same. And I think that's incredibly important. And I think it's especially incredibly important right now. So if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Give us a like, leave a comment. And we may be back here live again tomorrow on Sunday the 19th. It's hard to imagine and comprehend what's going on in this country right now, but it's happening, whether we understand it or comprehend it or not. And my brother and I are going to do everything in our power to help all of us get through these times. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.